Welcome to On the Rec Yard, Women's Prison Podcast, where we are live on the. Hey, everybody. We are On the Rec Yard, Women's Prison Podcast. I'm Marcy Marie.
I'm the Toonch.
The Toonchinator.
That's right. Don't ever forget it.
The big Toonchy.
It's like the Big Lebowski.
Yeah. Yeah. Toonch, we have a great show lined up tonight.
We really do.
Yeah, we are talking about Big Brother, about surveillance.
Dun, dun, dun. Honey, I can't wait to get into it because there's going to be some interesting things that we explore.
Surveillance inside of prisons, surveillance maybe pre-prison, surveillance after prison. Man, they just keep an eye on us.
Well, and all of us. That's what folks on. Hey, if you're new here and you're part of our community that are system impacted, or your family member, y'all know what we're talking about. But maybe folks that don't always see how criminal justice issues affect their day-to-day life and they've never been touched by the system. Well, honey, we're all fixing to be touched by the system. Touched by a not so nice angel.
100%. For those of y'all watching us live, watching us tonight right now, make sure you're sharing this live. Make sure you're liking, commenting, and if you're listening wherever you hear your favorite podcasts, please do leave us a review, and that just helps our show reach an even broader audience. This is our favorite night of the week, and we look forward to it. We look forward to this community. We love you all so much. Before we dive in to surveillance, let's do this. Hey, that felt so loud.
It really did, Marcy. And you sound so chipper, like our intros and our ending credits. What'd you say one day? You said, "What happened to that happy girl?"
Life, don't you? Life happened. Listen, when you get out of prison, you're kind of just running on this, even though there's like anxiety and fear and, doors closing in your face, you're still on this kind of just high that you're not behind prison bars. I mean, there's this natural high. Well, that dissipates. It just goes down. And so 4 years later, yes, I'm still happy I'm not in prison, but also life has kicked my ass since then.
Well, I mean, I will tell you too, I looked back through pictures of all of us from like 3 years ago, all of us and our friends. Why do we all look like 10 years younger?
Oh no, don't
We
say
do, all of
that.
us. I'm like, "My God, how long ago was this picture?" I'm like, "Oh, it was 3 years ago." It's
Wow.
shocking. Go back and look. It's really shocking.
I don't want to now.
Well,
I don't. Those same pictures are the ones I use for my profile pictures. Be
oh, well.
catfishing folks.
Now, I mean, I think I look pretty good. I got a haircut.
You did get a haircut, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a snazzy haircut.
I got my eyebrows done.
Well, it looks sharp. It looks sharp, Pappy. Pappy,
Thank
ready
you.
for a night on the out on the town.
And I am.
Yeah. Well, dude, what happened last week?
I
What's your
don't know.
weekly recap?
I have no idea.
Well, I think what's going to have to start happening for you is, and maybe me too, is maybe we need to prep for this question before we come on the air, before we record. I think we might have to prep. Like, what did we do this week? And are you strolling through your computer right now?
I mean, I don't y'all don't judge me, okay? Here's the deal. I'm trying to keep up with 30 things all in this hour alone, okay? And I know they're not like super emergencies, but they're pressing. So I apologize. What did I do last week though? I sat at this desk and knocked out some grant applications. I did a lot of desk work, and made my eyeballs real dry, made my ass sore. You know, y'all think that that doesn't sound like a lot of hard work. I know my dad will often tell me and my brother, "So you sat all day, played on the
Mm,
computer."
mm.
No, no, Roger. I was working. It's a lot of mental energy editing and doing documents and application portals and insurance and QuickBooks. It's a lot. So that's what I did. And then I went to East Texas to spend time with my family, which was good time, 5 hour
It was
drive.
Mother's Day weekend.
That's right. We went to
Yeah.
some antique shops. We ate a lot. Um,
Did your
had a
brother come down? It was just you and your dad or what?
was just me, my dad, and my stepmom. We had a nice little time. Went to all the little antique shops in the small little East Texas towns, and then I was ready to come home and curl up on this couch with this kitty. What did y'all do for Mother's Day weekend? You had 2 mamas in the house and a grandmama.
Yeah, we had a house full. We had, all my kids were here Sunday, and we swam and hung by the pool. My backyard's quite the vibe these days. You might not know it, but it's a whole vibe back there now. I have really really invested a lot of time getting our backyard together, and yeah, we hung out, we ate out there and swam and played volleyball in the pool, and it was a good Mother's Day. Listen, somebody asked me, somebody said that how their family kind of treats them like princesses on Mother's Day, like they just basically they're the ruler. So when they say stop bickering, everybody stops because it's Mother's Day. When they say, I'd like this for dinner, that's what we're having for dinner because it's Mother's Day. And I just want y'all to know that my kids don't get down that way, Toonch. They don't. It's far from that. So for those that might be listening for the first time, I was incarcerated for 10 years and I left 2 in diapers and 3 in middle school and came home. Um, and listen, my boys are the oldest and they're not they're about I love my mom, hug my mom. I don't randomly ask my mom for DoorDash $75 at Taco Bell in the middle of the day. Like they're that. But my girls, baby, they're savage. They are savage. My girls, I mean, they were, "Mom, can you go get me a drink? Mom, can you get out of the pool and do this? Mom, can you bring me a plate? Mom, can you?" And it's Mother's Day. And my boys kept saying, "It's Mother's Day." And they would come back with some snarky little replies like, "Yeah, but she was gone for 10 years." So we had 10 Mother's Day with her in prison. You remember that?
They are. They are savage. I've been around your twins,
Yeah.
and whew, only the strong survive.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, you were with us in Colorado when we were at that conference, and I got to bring my girls, and, we were all swimming, and I said, "Girls, I'm getting in the water, but I have to go back to work right after this, so don't get my hair wet." And within minutes, the baby, who's 15, she's 14 at the time, uh, but my baby splashes and gets it on me. I said, "Lily, what did I say about the water?" She said, "What did I say about you not going to prison?" "Oh, I didn't. You just went for 10 years." Like,
God,
it just hardcore. And then
they
it
are.
just like these little stabs, but it's our own kind of wild way of dealing with the trauma and healing from that. So it's whatever. I mean, I had to go to my PO this morning for a travel pass. I'll be in Chicago next week, but I had to go and I'm walking out the door and I said, "Hey, I'm going to my PO. I'll be back." And my oldest daughter's here. She says, "Don't get arrested." Like it's just kind of there. Yeah, it's just literally our little kind of dark way to get through. Um, yeah. So anyway, it was happy Mother's Day and happy Mother's Day to all the moms, all the moms, whether you whether you actually have ever birthed a child or not. Anybody who has ever mothered anyone, honestly. My wife is never had a baby of her own, and she can't now, but she's sure mothering the hell out of these little boys that live with us. So anyways, yeah, it was good. Well, let's get to it.
Let's do it.
So surveillance. I and if we're just going to dive right into stories, I'll tell you my first experience with incarceration surveillance. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
I'm in the county jail, and there I'm in a room. It's got a cell. It's got 2 sets of bunk beds, so it's 4 beds, and there's a camera on the ceiling. There's a shower and a toilet, and the camera is near the shower and toilet. I don't know which way it's facing, if it's facing down, is it facing the shower? I don't have a clue, but what I do know is the girl that slept on the bunk that was directly under the camera had a complete relationship with the officer that sat in the control room at night watching the cameras.
Mm.
So, yeah, yeah, so it was wild. Obviously, I can't sleep. I'm new to county jail. My anxiety's high. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know I'm not in my county. I'm gonna have to be transferred to my county. Like, it was just all kinds of wild things. But um, we had an intercom system that if there was an emergency, like for y'all that have ever seen Wentworth, when they're like, don't, whatever you do, don't touch the button. We had the call button in our cell, and he would talk to her at night and through this call button, and she would talk back to him, and then she would get in her bed and be under surveillance on her bunk. So I'm on the top bunk right across from her, like, trying to turn my back to her, and, yeah, it was it was really wild.
Um, just when I think that I've heard all your stories, there's a new one that always
Yeah,
pops up. Well, um, it's interesting when we start talking about surveillance and privacy. How deeply Americans treasure the right to privacy, and there's always been debates of, is that in the Constitution? Is that actually a thing, or do we just claim a right to privacy that we don't really have? But when you get incarcerated, the right to privacy is still should still apply, but it does not. Now, whether you are willfully allowing someone to watch you do activities, or if it is absolutely 100% out of your control. I think when I got locked up as a kid, the first thing I think that was peculiar to me once I kind of came out of my shock was that there was this little window in my door that somebody kept opening and looking at me all the time. And it was a very weird, uncomfortable, strange feeling to me that, I had parents that, would come knock on my door or whatever, but it just felt different. It felt voyeuristic, even though it
mhm.
was security check, right, Marcy? Because, as we talked about before, is these are security checks that they make sure that someone has not escaped or harmed themselves. But often it is not used for those reasons.
Yeah, I mean, that camera was I can't first of all, I can't imagine as a kid how that is, but in that cell, we knew he could see her bed, but we didn't have a clue. It was like the cameras that have those dark circle things over so you can't tell what direction it's facing. I don't know, can they move it around? Like, does he have a control? Like the cameras here at our house on our phone, we can get on our phone and move it all around to different directions if we want. Does that camera do that? I don't know, but what I know is I showered, used the bathroom, and changed in that cell. all of those things, you know? So, yeah, it's wild. Well, and I know my mind is just hopping all over the place, but I'm also thinking about the cubicles. Like, I was in a prison with pretty heavy cameras. They had just installed cameras on the Dr. Lane Murray unit, like, the year before I got there, and so they were new. The maintenance girls installed them, so we had a pretty good idea, at least about where they hit. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm.
because they're the ones who did it. But there were some cubicles in the housing areas that had cubicle style housing, that the cameras were just on that bed, just that one cubicle, just right on camera, one cubicle. Can you imagine living in that cubicle where you know you are on camera, full you are the focus of that camera 100% of the time, at least in a cell with 4 or 5 people and, different things going on, but just boom. Imagine having a camera right, some of y'all do have cameras right over your beds, but imagine having one that wasn't for you,
Right.
was for somebody else just to watch all the time.
Marcy, what I'm curious, what because when you do get locked up, you you do become aware that you're being watched all the time. Most of the time, mostly all the time. Somebody is watching you, whether it's another incarcerated person or the staff or admin or whatever, or cameras. You are being surveillance. You are being watched and tracked all the time. What to you, what did that feel like? And did you just not not forget about it? You just kind of put it in your back of your mind. You just always know that you're being watched. What did that feel like for you?
No, I don't think that you forget about it, Tooch. I think that you are always blatantly aware of who's watching you when I mean, and not so much incarcerated folks, some, because you always have some in the dorm. Um, so I'll say it this way, you can't live a life inside of prison without breaking rules. You can't. You can do your time possibly without breaking any rules, but you're not gonna have any kind of life, if that makes sense. If you're doing real time, you have to figure out how to have your own life in there. And that includes things like um, mutual aid, like helping the people in the dorm that don't have. That's against the rules. That includes things like celebrating somebody's birthday by making them a card. That's against the rules. So that includes a lot of things that break the rules, which mean you always have to know who the laws are working the dorm, where they are, where they're looking, who they're talking to, and you have to know where the cameras are placed in your dorm and where they're facing constantly, 100% of the time. And when I got out of prison, I spent 10 years watching the officers. I spent 10 years watching, surveying, surveillancing the people that were surveillancing me.
Mhm.
And so when I get home, I'm working in an Amazon warehouse and I find myself constantly watching my little manager. He was not little in person, but not the big manager, the lesser of the two managers, whatever, that was directly over me and my floor, constantly watching him. And I was not doing anything illegal. I was working hard. I was one of the top performers, working fast, doing all the things. I just came out of prison. You don't even have to worry about me going to the bathroom or anything because I'm trained to just work, So, like, I was doing great, but I'm also, while I'm working, out of the corner of my eye, keeping complete tabs on him everywhere he goes. For what? Because that's what I had been trained to do, because that's what you have to do in there to survive.
So how did you feel? How did being watched all the time feel? Did it feel uncomfortable? Did it feel, well, this is just part of the deal and oh well, or did it feel invasive?
I think there were times where it felt invasive, and it definitely depended on on staff, or who was working control, who was working the camera room at that time. I think that there were times when we knew pervy officers were in that room. If especially like if you spent the day in the dorm and then you go to lunch, and we would pass by line control, and you would pass by that room that has the cameras, and you would physically see the officer. And I remember being like, oh man, you know, this guy who is a creep when he works in the dorm is now behind a bunch of cameras. That's a great place for him to be. Like,
Mhm.
um, but I think that, like most things that happen during incarceration, like initially very uncomfortable, initially it felt very invasive, and eventually it just became part of life.
Yeah. I mean, because I think for the first time ever while we're talking, I'm reflecting on just that feeling of, you know, being in that room all the way up until I left. I never got over the feeling of that little window. In some units or jails, the window, it's got a door that they open and it claps shut. Some of them slide open. But it was always like this um, observation that made me feel like an animal. And I can feel that feeling inside of me right now, this um, anger, or anger mixed with embarrassment and discomfort.
How about when they would be having tours of the prison, and groups of college students or groups from or certain organizations or whomever, even new boots would come through. New boots meaning newly hired correction staff, um, would come through. That's when I would feel like an animal, because they would literally walk through and look at us like we were caged animals, and we were. We were caged animals, but I remember the same way, like, the signs, like, "Don't feed the monkeys," like, I felt like there was a sign, like, "Don't talk to the inmates,"
Mhm.
and I feel like they were told that, and it was always felt very awkward and intrusive. I mean, we'd be either sleeping or journaling or whatever, getting out of the shower or whatever, and this whole group would come through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
it was.
this like we're animals, like we're
Mhm.
um it felt like I felt so small. I think in those moments I felt really small, but there was something about being by myself in that room, that they were opening that little window and sliding it shut, that I felt like a monster, like I felt like a specimen, like
Oh
a
gosh.
like a like a research project or something that needed to be contained. And I don't know, it was a similar in both of those situations, but there was something about that little door and the little quickness of it and the little slam of it. The middle of the night you would hear it, and sometimes they would linger, or they'd put the flashlight in, but then sometimes they would just linger, and you I would just lay there and pretend to be asleep, and then they'd shut it, right? Like, I remember that sensation too. So, um,
That's
just
how it is at the ice house, Tunch.
mhm, mhm,
That
yeah,
little curtained window, the curtain's closed, so you can't see out, but they just slide that curtain back when they wanna peek in, and they peek in every 15 minutes, so, uh, consistently there, because that's the crisis management center, so you're there if they feel like you're a threat to yourself or others, then you're there.
yeah.
Yeah.
You like you said, you do eventually become kind of numb to it, but every once in a while it would catch me off guard of just how watched. Um, I had a when I was at Henley and I was doing my exit interview thing that they do. That was a program. Henley's a state jail facility, y'all. And we had to kind of go through this exit interview I don't know what they called it, but it was the counselor, it was either the warden or the chief of classification and security, and kind of like classification, Marcy, but I don't know if y'all did that when I know COVID was happening and stuff, but the warden of that unit was sitting there, and they went over my disciplinary record. And we all know that Tunchi only had 2 minor cases in 20 years, sharing that ice cream cone and giving somebody her alarm clock. But, the warden said, "Wait a minute, say that again." And so the little classification person, "You've only had 2." She said, "So let me get this straight. You only behave well when people are watching you." And that kind of set with me. She was being a smart ass, but I was like, well, damn, because in the world, obviously I messed up several times. But when I'm in prison, it wasn't that I was not doing things that were against the rules. Like you said, if, you're not going to have any type of life in there. But I knew I was always aware that I was being watched by staff. I was being watched by other incarcerated people, like you said, surveillancing those who are surveillancing you, because you already know at the corner of your eye, I'm putting my stuff in my box. Is this hole across from me, this in the cubicle in front of me? Is she watching me put this up, or is somebody watching me slip this to somebody? Because them holes will tell on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew how to be watched. Right?
Right.
It was harder for me to make good decisions when no one was looking, because I had the fear of immediate, like they're gonna intervene immediately. I can't, um, and people in the world may not really understand that, but I don't know. I've always had a weird relationship with being watched.
Hmm.
And I say this while my Google Nest camera is on, which is
Right.
constantly on. And
Yeah.
also, I track you and several other friends on Google Maps, because sometimes I like just to watch y'all's little avatars scoot across the map, because I like to see where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Apple just has that big lawsuit happening right now because Siri was listening to us, listening to our which we knew. We knew, right? Because we'd be at the dinner table talking about needing a new TV, and then all of a sudden a bunch of TV ads pop up on my Facebook feed.
Right.
So, uh, yeah, I mean, it's they're listening and watching out here,
And does
which
it
bring
bother you? Does it bother you out here that there is, I mean, because if y'all at home think that you're not being watched 24 hours a day, you are. You are being surveillanced through electronics, through walking to your mailbox. There's satellite, like you can't get away with. That's what always shocks me too with Dateline stories. It's like, girl, you thought you were going to get away with that in this day and age? So how, like, I don't care. It doesn't, you could put a government camera in my house right now, and I guess because I've been so desensitized, I don't care.
I
Who
would navigate
cares?
it. I would navigate it.
So does it bother you now that you're
Uh-uh.
surveillant?
Not even a little bit.
It doesn't me either,
No.
and people
Now,
have
I
gotten.
have a son. My son, I'm trying to think if I should even say this, but sometimes we'll be talking about like some maybe conspiracy theories, or maybe, something a little, hmm, that if we're going on, people wouldn't want us talking about it kind of stuff. And he will make me take off my Apple Watch and leave my phone. And we're in the country, and he will make me walk out away from the house, away from the cameras, away from, you know, and we'll just sit and chat about whatever's going on in our minds, but yeah. Yeah, he's very aware. He's very aware, and he's an electronics guy, but he's very it bothers him immensely.
You know,
And,
go
there's
ahead.
a lot of folks that will put like a they'll put like a little piece of tape, colored tape over their camera lens on their computers when they're not using their camera,
Yeah.
because those all that can be hacked into. And I think, Tunch, that there's a website that you can go to look in at those hacked cameras.
That's wild. Well, I do agree with, if obviously, I mean, because we knew we were being watched all the time, that, well, I need to tell Marcy something and the law's looking. Um, I may have to sign it, or I need to say it in code. I know that when people call us from prison, like when I even feel this girl fixing to start to tell me something that she's doing or has done or something, somebody got into a fight, and I'll say, "Hey, well, isn't it great that we're on this recorded line with Securus?" "Oh, yeah." And I said, "You just dreamt all that stuff the other night?" She goes, "I did. It was just a crazy dream." Like, because she's such a ding dong. I don't know why she just freely does that over, people will do that and get busted.
Yeah.
Jail
People
and
do
prison
get
phones are recorded.
Yes. Yes, people, stop spilling your business on prison and jail phone calls, whether you're locked up or in the free world.
Just stop.
Stop doing it. Stop. Please stop. If
Record
you
it.
haven't gone to trial yet or haven't resolved your case and you're in jail, they can use all of that against you in your
Do not
all
talk
that
about
counts
it
as
on the
evidence.
phone.
Please stop. Um, and then just a quick side note, not to get too far because we won't go down the Luigi, but they brought up his recorded phone calls even with his attorneys in his hearing. I mean, like, they're listening, whether they're supposed to or
Or
not.
not. Well, and I think I try to be aware of it, you know, when the best I can, but there is this part of me that's like, I don't give a fuck. I don't. I'm not doing anything traditionally illegal, and what I mean by that, meaning whatever state our government is moving into, that even just vocalizing dislike for a political figure could be a crime. Um, I'm just not willing. If I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong, I'm going to say what I want to say. Period. If it down to my last dying breath, I mean that. So I don't give a fuck who's listening. I mean, I prefer that if I'm talking about something private, about my vagina or something,
Jesus.
I prefer
Jesus,
that
God.
it's not recorded and shared, if my conversation with my doctor, but at the end of the day,
Oh,
like I said,
well. Oh,
oh, well.
well. Because let me tell you, I've been in prison where, after a fight, or especially for me, after I had my mental health break and I had to get forcefully strip searched in a cell, and all of that's documented on camera, 2 cameras, a recording camera and a pictures.
Mhm.
After that, that camera that holds all of that, all of those images, all of that video, they get they get passed around.
Yeah.
We watch the officers pass those cameras around and watch them. Now, what the hell does just a regular old CO working in the dorm need to see a camera of me getting stripped, or girls that have been in fights having to get pictures of their bodies naked? Because when you get in a fight and there are injuries, that's what they do. They strip you down and take pictures of you, and it's on a camera, your naked body. And that's passed around. Like, it's not, there's no kind of I mean, if you have to record that evidence, at least have some integrity with where it goes and who sees it and why they're seeing it.
Yeah.
It shouldn't just be saved on the camera that is accessible by every single officer on duty. That stuff should be in a file in the computer for the staff that needs to see it if it comes up again.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
I mean, they're not they're not doing those things securely. I mean, they don't do security and data, and it's just, even though we know all the risk of how things get shared or broken into, nobody does a good job of it, and certainly not them, and they don't even care, um, because it's just us, and we're entertainment a lot of the time. And I think when you are just constantly watched and you've been stripped of uh, whatever level of modesty. And I think to protect myself when I was stripped of privacy and my body being my own and my just being watched all the time, when that happened, something inside of me to protect myself was just like, I don't I don't care. Do it then. How about that? Watch me then.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, I'll navigate around you. And I think for those of us who've been incarcerated, when we hear the things that are scary about what possibly could be happening for the future of our country in terms of surveillance, in terms of incarceration, I mean, we don't want any of it. It's not like we enjoy any of it, but there's something about us that is very stoic in the sense of, well, shit. I'm not going to live in fear, and I'm not going to bow down, and I'm not going to change who I am or what I'm doing because, girl, I've been through the worst. The worst has happened to me and been taken from me. There's nothing you can ever get from me that the system wasn't just no. So record me, watch me, track me, surveillance me. It's not right. It's not. And also, um, what can we do?
We'll navigate, and we know how because prison taught us. So,
We hadn't
yeah.
even touched on the type of surveillance of parole because you're on parole.
Sure. Yeah. Went to the parole office this morning.
Did you? Well,
I did.
how
Yeah.
fitting.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
you're being surveillanced in the world, which could mean what? Not just an office visit, and we'll get into ankle monitors and GPS tracking like we're deers and cattle, but um, what does surveillance also mean?
I
Do those
mean,
people watch your social media?
they they do watch my social media. I don't know if all of them do. So, and I've had enough POs that I just feel like I can say it pretty safely without getting anyone in trouble. But they were like, "Yeah, girl, I'm not supposed to really tell you this, but the whole office watches your videos. We all watch your videos." And when I realized that you were on there, like we just all binged them, and so I know that they do. And then I have had another officer that I had for a shorter time reference one of my videos. When I went in. And so for sure that happens. But what happened today is I was surveillanced while I peed in a cup by a girl I went to high school with. So that was fun.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
How
That was
did that
fun.
feel? How did that
No,
feel?
I mean, that's what well, I held a complete conversation with her. She said she's not my PO. My PO is a male, so he doesn't come in to watch me. It's always somebody else, and twice now it's been her who I did go to high school with. And she said, "Hey, he told me to tell you to go to Pope's Pizza when you get to Chicago. Your PO said recommend. So I want to make sure so that's what we talked about. And so as I'm sitting on the toilet with my pants down around my ankles and my knees spread open because I'm holding a cup underneath me because that's how it works. Um, I'm talking about trying deep dish pizza in Chicago and I didn't love it. But I don't know if it's because I had lost my voice and was on my cycle and in a bad mood. So I didn't know if that's why I didn't like the pizza, but I'm willing to give Pope's a try. So obviously it didn't bother me too much. We just had a whole conversation. Isn't that
Well,
great? And then I pull the cup out a little to make sure that I peed enough in the cup right in front of her. And I did. So then I closed my legs a little on my knees and put my cap back on. And there's like a table in front of the toilet where you set it. And she has the gloves on and she picks it up and pulls the little tab back. She gives the pee a little
swish. Mhm.
yeah, a little swish and says, "You're good. And then she says, "I'm gonna step out so you can do what you have to." So she doesn't watch me like clean my JJ afterwards. So that's nice.
I wanted just as a side note that being observed and surveillanced, at parole doing UAs was I'll tell you, my first time that I was on parole, very rarely did I ever get piss test. This time, I was piss test every time I went in. I was called randomly for piss test, and honey, I don't have a drug history whatsoever. Maybe there was some alcohol in that second charge, but yeah, it was just constant. And I hate it. I abhor it. I hate it. And also as a side note for surveillance and being watched, were you ever piss test in prison?
I was not. I was in the halfway house, and that
Mm.
was way more intrusive. I don't know what that was way more intrusive. I mean, like, squat down in front of you a little bit to make sure the urine is coming from your body and not
Yes.
and that was a little bit much for me,
Yeah.
truly.
I,
Yeah.
was piss test, they would do random UAs,
Mhm.
on the unit sometimes, and it happened to me at Riverside when I was younger, and it was host squad bosses, and it was I don't ever remember being piss test prior to this. I don't I think maybe I knew what it was like to give a urine sample, and in medical, and when I was in the youth system, I think I did a urine sample one time, but they didn't do that. Well, of all the abuses that they did, they never bothered to piss test us. So this was my first experience with somebody watching me, and I couldn't go, and the lady was I forget which boss it was, deeply hateful and mean and screaming. It was they were in front of all the
Mm.
stalls in education, and it was squat and let me see the pee coming out of your hole kind of.
Like you have resources in there to really I mean, what it you can't go to the smoke shop or wherever and buy the contraption that whatever you would strap to your body or whatever you would do, like, I never heard of course and to be fair, maybe the guys are doing it in prison, I don't know, but there wasn't a drug issue where we were, and so maybe that was it, but no women are trying to figure out how to beat a piss test in prison while we were there at least, wasn't
Yeah.
happening.
But those ones at the parole office, OMG. I don't know if you've ever been in an office where I've been in offices where the officer comes in and
Mhm.
watches, which was still weird and very uncomfortable, but it was like a strip search. And a lot of times they'll just talk to you because they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So, but I think it was at the Smith County parole office. One of the offices I went, there was a window, and it was a bathroom everybody used. And there was a
Oh.
window that slid open that the officer came in and watched through that window, and you handed them the. And to me, that was weirder because I have this weird thing about you watching me through some type of medical window that makes me feel like a specimen.
Mhm.
Um, but I hated it, Marcy. I hated it so much. UAs. I
Yeah.
I had to take one when I worked at Goodwill to become a manager, and they watch you.
Wait, what? Goodwill watches you? Get off the
No,
gas.
the
Stop
people, the
right
lab
now.
corps that I went to go take the piss test for watched me.
They watch you pee?
Mhm.
Okay, y'all are doing too much, first of all, because a little pat search would be just fine for you to determine I don't have any fake urine on me or someone else's urine or whatever. You don't have to do all that.
Well,
You must
and
have wanted to do that, LabCorp.
and I'm going to tell you in terms of how the free world can very much mirror um, surveillance practices of prison. When I worked at Goodwill and a little bit at Subway, but here I'm fixing to trash Goodwill again. Very grateful for the job, but had to fight tooth and nail for it. Second chance, my ass. But Honey, there were cameras all over that store. And we had Main Central would call the second we stopped because we had wares and clothes. Like we're going through the items to label, and then somebody's going through clothes and tagging them. And you had to get a rack of 100 clothes out and a table of wares out every hour. It was, and if you stopped or you were moseying around outside or you went too long on a break, her name was Bethany. I'm gonna
Mm.
put that whole
Bethany
out
from Goodwill.
from Goodwill. I don't know if she's there anymore, but I'm gonna tell you, Central would call because they had someone who all they did was watch the store cameras.
All they did was surveillance.
That's it. And so they would call and say, my manager's name, her name was Bunny. Believe it or not, that was her name. She was a good lady and good manager. And she said, "Hey, y'all, Bethany's called. Y'all got to come back from that smoke table. Hey, Bethany called. She's watching on the cameras, and y'all are spending too long talking at the counter." I said, Jesus God, I'm back in prison. I said, no wonder y'all can't keep employees because y'all are treating them like they're in prison. Well, it's because people steal what? Donated items, not money. And they treated us like people who were incarcerated. It was terrible. It was terrible.
That
And
is
there was,
just like somebody in line control in the camera room calling the dorm boss saying, hey, bunk 16 just passed bunk 17 something. And the officer come, what'd you just hand her? Ma'am, you were not even in here. They saw you on the camera. What I handed her a piece of paper. I handed her an I-60. Like, what do you mean?
I want to share something because we're at 46 minutes. But a friend of ours, very fitting today, she got off her parole monitor, her ankle GPS monitor. And y'all, again, surveillance, what that means for people on parole. You have curfew monitors, which, you got to be inside by a certain time. And then you have GPS monitors that track your location. Then you have super intensive supervision program, which means that not only are you being tracked and having to be in at a certain time, you have to make a schedule of the places you go. And it's very limited places you can go. So Walmart to the store, to work, to AA and some classes, and to the doctor. And church, you got to get permission for. There
Mm.
is no going to Marcy's house for Mother's Day. There is no going out to eat because your grandma's in town. None of that. Um, it's it's very strict and really hard for people to complete, just because it's just, I believe it sets people up for failure the way that it's just almost impossible to conquer. But our girls are doing it. A friend of ours a couple of weeks ago, Destiny got hers off, but the friend that got hers off today did 33 years incarcerated. Didn't think she was going to be able to get out. Got out and was on this monitor for over a year with a lot of, just the system, not her. She went to work, she went home, she went to work. And today was the victory for that. So I want to upload this video so that everybody can, they let her cut it
You
when she went
haven't
to office.
uploaded it yet?
Well, honey, I
Did you?
thought I could just share my screen, and I don't know if
Okay,
that's
you
going to
can
be
do that.
possible.
You can do that.
So please talk while I figure out my life.
Bejeebies, bejeebies. Well, I will tell you, you brought up Destiny's name, who had an ankle monitor when she got out. And I have a text message from her right now trying to work on her travel pass with her PO. Like that's you. Policy says we can travel. Policy says we can travel. If we're doing everything else we're supposed to, we're allowed to leave the state. So what's the issue? What's the issue, y'all? Get it together. Look at you.
Is it uploading?
Well, it says
It just
add.
goes with anything. Okay, hold on.
Here,
Let me see.
can you move the?
Which one? That's how it goes.
It's easier
Okay.
for you.
There's the monitor on her foot.
Oh.
Honey, we can't see the monitor.
Well, however,
Do you see it on your end?
Well, okay, here we go.
It's not
Uh-oh.
showing.
Really, I can't. I think you have to do it. Wait, here we go. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Circle around and I cut myself. Amen.
That's her
Ooh,
talking.
this is hard. Okay.
Oh, well,
Hallelujah.
hit the
Amen.
floor.
Thank you.
You heard it? Well, I don't know if y'all could see it. I saw it. We can upload it on the
Do we have
page too.
obviously, we have permission if you
Yes,
if
I
you
just
say
asked
it
her.
here.
She
Oh,
sent it.
good. Okay.
And so she was like, the parole officer let her cut it and take the scissors and cut it off, and you heard it go clunk, right? Um, so it was a big day. It has really been just a real headache trying to have a successful reentry journey. And I've told someone in TDCJ, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, like, y'all are trying to help people have good reentry experiences. These monitors are an absolute 100% barrier, and their surveillance through those, Marcy, are not great. That's the rub, is that this is supposed to be for public safety, and in terms of even surveillance, oh, it shows Destiny here, but she's actually over here, or it shows Jennifer in Kilgore, but her monitor is malfunctioning and it looks like she's in Henderson.
GPS is not 100% accurate. I had to take my grandmother to the AT&T store today. I'd been there an hour. Across the way, there's an IHOP. My dad texts me, "How's IHOP? Is it good?" It showed that I was in the IHOP restaurant. I was far, not I mean, a good distance in a whole nother building, in a shopping center, far from across the road from the IHOP. It's not accurate.
And then people get in trouble for that.
Yes.
And it's like, well, the machine's not going to lie. No, the service is not great, and it's not tracking me properly to begin with.
It happens all the time on all of my I mean, sometimes Brittany will message me and we use Life 360, a fairly reliable, well-known family location tracking app, and she'll say, "Hey, what are you doing over here?" And I'll turn my phone on and or off, or and it'll update. "Oh, I see you now." Like, I mean, it just sometimes it doesn't work. It doesn't whatever. Shit happens is what we're saying. And it happens at the expense of the incarcerated or formerly incarcerated person or person under surveillance, person on probation or parole, that are required to be at places at a certain time. So yeah, we see that all the time.
Yeah. I it was when you start getting me talking about ankle monitors, nothing makes me as angry in terms of parole as those GPS tracking devices, because they don't do what they're supposed to. They do not increase public safety. They're a hot Duke mess, and it's
No,
always
because
the person on
it's
parole that gets the short end of
yeah.
the stick.
And the fact of the matter is, if I'm on parole or probation and I'm wearing an ankle monitor and I make the conscious decision to go break the law, I'm not going to take my ankle monitor with me. You're not going to track me to where I committed my crime. If I'm breaking the law anyway, I'm going to take the first step, just like Belinda did in that video, and cut that ankle monitor off and go commit whatever, I
Right.
mean, I'm just saying, that's
Yeah.
just the
It's
fact of
the
the matter.
truth.
Someone that's hell bent on committing a crime doesn't care about committing the crime of cutting off their ankle monitor. It's
Right.
not this what is this for? It's just to keep their thumb on you a little bit harder, or
And
is it
and and don't do a great
contracts and
job.
money? They
Yes.
cost money,
Yes.
lots of money.
Well, and Marcy, I know we're down to the last few minutes, but the surveillance through these companies that do ankle monitors, that do our incarcerated emails and phone call Securus and CenturyLink and all those other places. A lot of it, and a lot of the surveillance in the free world, is, yes, it boils down to control and government control, and also some people are getting very, very rich. Um, off of surveillance industry.
Yes. Yes, 100%. 100%. Like most everything else, it all comes down to the mighty dollar.
Yeah.
So 100%. Tunch, we're at the end of the road, sis.
We're here we've come to the end. You guys, we need to tell y'all. I know that Marcy said it. For 2 years, she said, we're doing big new things with the podcast, but we really, really are. So y'all need to acclimate to it. We don't want to lose you, but you're going to have to scoot that ass on over to YouTube or your audio platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, because we're fixing to consolidate and move it to one place. One place.
One-stop shopping.
Okay. And
Thank y'all for go ahead.
Oh, I'm not done getting onto them right now. Also, we're going to be doing we're going to consolidate to doing one live a month. Okay? So there'll just be one time you can interact with us live, and it will be truly we're on the rec yard, anything goes. But our other episodes will be hopefully with me and Marcy together with a little bit more polished production and some deeper dives. So y'all need to get on it. Get over that YouTube, get over that Spotify, and get your lives together. We don't want to lose out.
Thank you for the community that helped us build this platform to where we are. We can't wait to take it to the next level and bring you all with us. Thank you for liking the live. Thank you for all the hearts and loves and comments and all the sharing the live, all the good things that you do for us every week. We appreciate you so much. And we will be back the same time, same place next week. Until then, y'all stay free. Thank y'all for hanging out with